Your digital life is part of your estate, whether you plan for it or not. Today, we're going to cover what actually happens to your accounts, what loved ones can legally access, and a practical checklist you can do in under an hour.
Welcome to a Wiser Retirement Podcast, where we cut through the noise and bring you real, honest conversations about investing, retirement, and building lasting wealth. No sales pitches, no gimmicks, just everything your financial advisor won't tell you.
Welcome to a Wiser Retirement Podcast. I'm Shauna Theriault, Senior Financial Advisor at Wiser Wealth Management, and today I'm joined by estate planning attorney Arun Gupta. Today we'll be discussing your digital estate planning and what happens to your online life.
Hi, Shauna.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Always good to see you.
You too.
Well, this is kind of I would say it's probably not a newer subject, but it is somewhat newer subject in the estate planning. It's like we're seeing more and more of this,
sure.
Where more online things, digital assets, crypto, all these things. And it's something that many don't even think about when you're thinking about how are my accounts titled and all these things. And it's really interesting. And the biggest thing, it's like all the passwords, right? It's the statistic is the average person manages 168 personal passwords plus like 87 work passwords. So that's like 240, 50 passwords. That is wild.
Yeah, it's a lot to keep up with. And, that's, and this is like you said, this is somewhat new.
Yeah.
I know people have been living online for decades now, but a lot of those people haven't died yet, right? So now that's kind of happening, and
Exactly.
it's more at the forefront of what actually happens.
And I feel like more and more things are online and assets are online.
Yes,
And,
yes.
it's just, so I would say, I'm saying it's somewhat new just because, things are changing quickly. And so we have to keep up with those as new situations arise in the
Yes.
States and all of that, right?
Yes.
So just getting into a little bit of defining what a digital asset is and what counts. I guess the first thing is like financial and value assets.
Yes. I think there's a few different definitions. Practically speaking, I think it's a digital asset that has value, whether that value is economic, whether that value is sentimental.
Yeah.
It's got value and it's digitally stored. It's not like physical.
Right. So that could be like your financial assets. That's like banking, Venmo, credit cards, crypto wallets, domain names, things like that, business logins. I don't know that we think about all of, I think about when we're doing an estate plan. I know when I'm talking to a client, we're talking about the titling of the accounts and the house and the personal property. I don't know that we go into like all of the nitty gritty, like the pictures and the sentimental things. It could be like social media, subscriptions, password managers. I think we do talk a little bit about passwords and all of that, but just really digging in and just thinking about that. Because I don't know that that's a big topic of discussion surrounding the table, at least in this plan. And I think it needs to be more of that.
No,
to be honest with you.
I'm with you. It's usually not brought up in meetings with me.
Right.
And even, looking over today's topic, I need to bring it up more because we kind of just lump it in with everything else. But some of these things are quirky. They're not all, hey, this is just part of everything.
Right.
There's privacy concerns with some of these things. It's at least something that people should think about. At least be aware that what this is and what you want to have happen to it. Now, more often than not, most people are probably going to just lump it in with the rest of their estate plan.
Sure.
But, at least think about that. Maybe you don't want to do that.
You could have somebody, you and I were talking, we're going to get into specifics, but even something like a Venmo account. It's like, we don't even think about that. Somebody could have a lot of money just sitting in Venmo.
Yep.
And because maybe they have a small business or they get paid that way or they're doing a side thing or I don't know, whatever. Or, they're collecting money because they're the team mom of a something. It could be, and you don't even know. And we don't really talk about that.
No,
or I haven't.
To be honest with you, I haven't talked about the link to it because, your Venmo, Cash App, a lot of these apps, you may think, I can replenish it through my checking account. So
Right.
it's kind of linked. So but it's not all governed by your checking account.
No, it's like
it
a
actually
separate
is separate.
account.
It is separate.
Yeah.
And the easy thing to tell people would be, hey, well, just keep sweeping your money out into your checking account so it's controlled by that. But again, like you said, if you're running a small business, maybe you're paying a lot of bills out of your Venmo, and you can't just keep sweeping. You need a large balance, and that type of asset, it's governed by the Venmo controls it. Their terms of service are going to spell out
Right.
privacy concerns of what happens.
But we don't ever actually even bring that up.
Yeah.
In switching gears a little bit, so what happens when you actually die? There's like a couple different things. You have the platform policies, which is what the company allows, like Venmo, Google, Apple, social platforms, things like that. Then you have like the legal layer, what your executors permitted to do. And then the practical layer is what your family can actually pull off. So there's kind of three different things to really think about. So in talking about like the platform policy, what the company allows, I haven't really dug into the social platforms. What can you do, with TikTok, X, deletion options, what Apple will allow, Google, et cetera. Because each of them will have their own policies on what's accessible and what's not.
Yeah, it's tough, especially most people aren't probably reading all the fine print of the companies, and they'll probably click buttons and just move on, right? But there is substance in those, and those things do matter. And as digital assets have gotten more prominent, a lot of these companies, knowing that people may not pay attention to this, they've set up a layer at the front which helps with this, and that's choosing basically a legacy contact that's associated with those accounts, which come first. So if you put a legacy contact on some of your social media platforms, that person can be contacted and can get into your account essentially, right after you pass away, if you have that in place.
And that's the same with Apple as well.
Yes. Because
I know a lot of
companies
people do
are going to
Apple.
have that. Yes,
but that's interesting. Like I didn't even know there was a thing as a legacy contact in Apple.
Yeah,
you don't think about that. It's like, who can access this? You just think they have your passwords and all of that, but I didn't know you could list one of those.
Yeah,
and legacy contacts,
and it's important because a lot of your life probably functions on a lot of these apps and platforms, and a lot of data is on there, right?
Yeah.
So if a company has those legacy contacts, right, that is what's going to come first, right? But not all companies have those, right?
But this is just something to be thinking about and looking at.
Yes.
It's like Google will have an inactive account manager that lets you designate contacts to receive selected data after an activity. So it's like not, you can choose what you want it, what they can access. Apple has that legacy contacts that lets someone access data in your Apple account after you pass away. With process and safeguards, of course, but and then other social platforms, just be thinking about that, Meta, TikTok, etc. If you can, do memorialization, but who can access your information afterwards, if anyone. So it's so interesting, and just something that I think we need to talk about more in meetings.
Yeah.
The other one is really, and this is a great, for you, the legal layer. What can your executor actually do? What are they permitted to do?
Yes.
This is that alphabet soup.
Yeah. So and this was so Georgia and a lot of other states around this time kind of revamped their statutes to cover digital assets. I think it's the revised uniform digital access
assets act something.
Yes.
It's like RUFADAA.
Yes. Basically, I think of it as the Digital Assets Act, but basically,
and most states have enacted that.
Yes.
Okay.
Or some form of it.
Okay.
But basically, so you're while you're alive, if you've got a financial power of attorney, so this is a document that appoints an agent to step in and have the authority to manage finances on your behalf, make sure bills are getting paid. That's while you're alive. And then your executor is after you pass away, someone that is designated to basically step in your shoes and manage your estate. On a big picture level, they've got access to a catalog of your digital assets, meaning they can see for an email when you sent it to who, subject line, but they can't actually get the content of it. They don't have the legal authority to access the content of electronic communications.
So they can see that. So legally, this act protects the content, is what you're saying. So it's like you can access to see what was happening, but you can't get into the details of it.
Yes, but you can further spell that out within your documents. So for a financial power of attorney, that Georgia does a standardized form now, but basically there's a section where you can give your agent extra powers that go above and beyond the statute.
And you and I've talked about that on the show before.
Yes.
Okay.
And the one special power that I routinely tell clients, I think you should at least think about doing this, is that one. It is access the content of my electronic communication, because there may be valuable information in there. The subject line to who was from, that's not enough. You need the content of it. Maybe it's got information about, more information about your bills, which, just there's info in there, right? And if you give your agent that power, well, then at least they have the legal authority to access the content. And then same thing, with wills, when someone passes away, the default is access the catalog, but you can further spell that out in your estate planning documents to have them access the content, which I think it's helpful. But again, everyone's situation may be different. Maybe you don't want to give someone the access to see the actual content, There are things to be thinking about, but that is something that is in place. In most states, some form of that is going to be in place.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just practically speaking, then there's what your family can actually do, and what they can pull off. So what your executor is permitted to do legally has that act, and then what they can do. So even if we talked to this a little bit, even if legally authorized, sometimes you hit walls because we have two-factor authentication, unknown devices, things like that, and so. If you're wanting to, how do you get around that? I guess your cell phone should be in joint name with your spouse, or because it's always like send a code and do a thing.
I'm with you. There's I think two-factor authentication. It's definitely, while you're alive, it's great. Because it's quick, it's easy. There's a big layer of protection there, right? But if you are incapacitated or if you die, sometimes a password's not enough. You need to, have that extra layer, right? So, just on a big picture level, right? I think making sure that your point person, whether it's your agent, executor, trustee, spouse, that person, you don't have to tell them your, password, but at least tell them where that information is located.
Because, I'm thinking about like photos, even like pictures of the family and all these things you've downloaded in your iCloud.
iPhone password, your iPhone code, right? Because if you need to, authenticate it after you already have the password, having access to the phone is very important. Email and phone are.
So, even if you don't want people to like read your emails, because it's like, okay, maybe there's nothing they need in that, but just accessing like pictures on Dropbox or other platforms that have all like the family photos and things like that, and things you just don't think about. One person may have managed those for the house or family, and you just don't think about all the backups. And even things with just like paying bills or your backup Quicken file or
there's a
random.
lot out there. There's a whole lot.
Or old tax returns, or, one person does this and everything's tied to that and they have to reset passwords and access it, and, all of those things.
That's why, I think, and that's going to be kind of a theme, is to make sure that your trusted person, at the very least, knows that you have these digital assets and again, you don't have to tell them your password, but at least let them know where they can access that information, if and when, they
Absolutely.
need to.
Absolutely. This other thing to think about too is sort of the digital afterlife. So it's like social media and permissions there, and something you just don't think about. It's like what happens to, your Facebook, your other things. It's just interesting when we were looking at this. Memorialized accounts are becoming more common, where you're kind of leaving this. All the stuff that this person and kind of leaving a legacy, because you can look back on their stuff and all of that. So Facebook has actually created and drawn attention and scale towards legacy contact features.
Yes.
So that's just really interesting. I don't know. It's just something I think it's just something we could briefly touch on with clients to think about these things. Like, what do you want to be left out there? I don't know. This was interesting. Wired reported that 30 million users about 30 million viewers viewing memorialized profiles monthly.
Yeah. And I think
was like, wow.
Beyond the...
Because you think how many people out there,
Yes.
I mean, it's just going to be a huge amount of people that eventually, as generations change. But that would be so interesting. You could actually go back and look at your great grandmother's stuff. It's like you could actually get to know your ancestors online.
There's value beyond Facebook providing your loved ones a value by having, legacy contacts.
Sure.
Obviously, part of this is it's good for them too, right?
Yeah.
If there is, more views, more, ad revenue, et cetera, when there's this platform that exists for that purpose, right? So, I think they're good to at least have that legacy contact, right? Because, it's the easiest way for that person to access, that information. Because if you don't have one, automatically, it's going to become a lot harder. Not to say that there's no way you can get into it if you don't have that, but it is going to make things significantly harder.
Yeah.
Especially,
it's just there were. When we were looking at this, projections showed that deceased users' profile could become like a huge share of social networks. I mean, you can say, okay, you could look at famous people. Like, think about years and years ago, if we could look up, what famous people were doing, or I don't know. It's just really interesting to think about that. And you can look at your families. And
I think it was a little jarring before when you'd see an account for someone that had passed away, like putting out, tweets, posts, etc. I think it's almost, I don't know, it's normal now to me to have to see it now, right? I think it's again, these platforms are probably encouraging that too, right? Because again, it is more views. And hey, it is a way for someone to be more connected with someone that, has passed away, a loved one, fan, whatever it is.
Yeah, and just that's just reiterated more. Be careful what you put out there, because it could be.
Of course. No, of course. See, and that's where the privacy part is, because again, you may want to lump this in with all of your other assets, right? But there may be things, likely are things on your social media that maybe you don't want someone to see the content of, right? So it's at least something to think about, not only for when you put these measures in place, but before you post something even, just think about all of these things, at least in the back of your mind.
100%.
Quick check-in. Have you thought about the legacy you'll leave behind? Download 7 Steps to Leave a Financial Legacy, a free guide from Wiser Wealth Management to learn more. It's not just about wealth. It's about leaving a lasting impact. Go to wiserinvestor.com/guides to download your free guide today. Now let's jump back into the episode.
Just want to go through a couple things. What do you recommend for, storing passwords and all of that? Like, what is the best thing to do with that?
Well, I think definitely having a password manager, especially I think what the stat that you cited earlier about the
250.
The number, it's impossible to keep up with everything these days, right? I
think that's why so many people use like the same password for everything, which is dangerous, is like, so, and then you really need it to be really hard and, a really challenging passcode with different characters and all of that.
Yeah.
So
I think, these LastPass, there's
where they generate a password for you.
Yes. For all of your, I don't want to say your other, but basically the central password for these services is the one that you want to make sure, one, obviously it, right? But the person that may have to pick up the pieces, let them know where they can access that information. Now, I wouldn't put that info like in your in your will. Don't like put your password in there or anything like that. But
because that could be public.
Yes, exactly.
Public knowledge,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. So
yeah,
what,
and
what
you
else?
if you change it, I guess.
Yeah, but it's still something you just probably don't want out there, right? But what I'll and the built-in provisions that I'll have in my documents will say I will give that extra layer to access the content, and I will also say that there is a reference of these passwords that I intend to keep, whether you do or you don't. It's kind of communicating that, listen, I know you may need to get into these digital files. I'm at least intending to create something where you can access this. Right now, I think having these password managers is where to do it, because you don't need to list out. If you have that central password, that's really the key for them, right? I think that's going to help them. And then also your email and your phone. Those passwords, your email, phone passcode, and your password manager passwords, I think are easy enough. That's not too overwhelming, at least for that to be notated. Now, the actual, make it in plain English. You don't have to make it some formal legalese thing. Just put and make sure that, again, your point person knows that this document exists.
And I think that should be done sooner rather than later, because I mean, even if you're young, we never know what's going to happen. You could get in a car accident or something can happen, and
yes, of course.
That's being prepared is very important, of course.
And while this may sound overwhelming, and it is, the actual time it takes for you to sit down and do it's probably not going to be that long. No. I bet you could probably do it in under an hour.
Yeah. We're going to do a checklist too.
Yeah, and you can, at the very least, that is going to take care of that 1 hour you spent. I can guarantee you is worth a 10, 20, 100 times what the other person may have to deal with.
Well, and it's really like thinking about if you're opening a new type of money transfer account, even like a Venmo or whatever, thinking about, okay, can someone, you just being mindful of it and knowing that there's an option to give somebody access or just be thinking about that.
Yes.
Because I think that's something that I didn't think about either.
Yeah.
Just generally like the random things we have sitting out there. So we're very careful with clients to be like, okay, we're going to do a revocable living trust. We're going to make sure things probated. We're going to do all these things, but then we may have these little, and sometimes it may not be worth it to just let them go to unclaimed property. Maybe, I don't know if it's worth it to do like $2, but well,
that's another reason why I think it may be good to sweep some of these accounts out so there's not that much of a balance in there. So if the worst thing happens, you don't have it set up, well, it's not, going to be as devastating as it would be otherwise. But, there's a lot you can do to help people with this.
Absolutely.
And again, you can updating your estate planning documents. This is another, this is part of it, right? While you're doing, if you're already updating your estate planning documents, think about this, right? Well, it's a good time to knock it all out.
And sometimes clients will ask us, like, I can just go and write my own will or, go pull one from online, but does it address all this? Probably not. I mean, it's kind of messy.
Yeah, it is.
It's like one of those details that you're not thinking about that,
exactly.
It gets missed potentially.
Yes. No, I'm with you. I mean, I generally speaking, even if you pull something online, I'm guessing it's probably going to be better than not having anything. All of that being said, it's still, it's good to think about as part of your, whole estate plan.
Have you had to deal yet with, and if you haven't, that's okay, with any like crypto wallet or crypto?
Personally, I have not had to deal with someone dying that had crypto and that asset being difficult to transfer. However, it happens all the time. And crypto, when you hear digital assets, that might be the first thing that you think of. I know there's a lot more to it, but crypto obviously is classified as would be a digital asset. And I'm no crypto expert at all, but we're all
getting trained on all of this, right?
Yes, there's a cold wallet and a hot wallet. The cold wallet cryptos are basically, it's not connected to the internet. It's on maybe your password, your seed phrase is on a USB drive, right? It's a physical device. If you can't access that, it's over. There's no customer service line you can call. There's no you're not getting it, right? While you're alive, obviously it's going to provide the most protection because it's not out there. It could make things difficult for your point person, right? So again, make sure that info is on whatever document it is that you prepare. If you do have crypto, for your point person so they can deal with it. And then the exchanges, the hot wallets, that's connected to the internet. While that may be, more susceptible to data breaches while you're alive, at the least when you pass away, it's
more accessible,
easier to deal with in a sense. It's still not as easy as dealing with like a standard financial institution, but crypto is much harder to deal with when someone passes away.
And I think that's just something that's going to be coming up more and more, where we're thinking about that, and where it's going to be ongoing learning for all of us in that in estate planning.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a checklist, this actionable to do this today plan. So this can be something that's done very quickly. Mm-hmm. We have different steps here for you to think about and to go through. So step 1, just inventory. This can take like 15 minutes. This the whole goal of this is like less than an hour, at least to start thinking about and doing. So step 1, doing an inventory.
And you don't feel like every teeny little, at least get the big ones. At least get the big ones, Google, your phone, your email, at least have
your phone carrier.
Yes.
I wouldn't, phone, banking, social media, cloud photos, crypto, key subscriptions, all of those.
Yes.
So just list it out.
Yes.
And then note where the data lives too.
Yes. Again, plain English, right? Tell the person where it is, right? Because if you do all this work and they can't find it, right, let them know where that information
Well, because some people back up to the iCloud. Some people do Google Docs. Some people do Dropbox. You know what I mean? Have a third party that's doing their backup, with their information. So now you may know with your spouse, but if you step in as a grown child and you're helping your parent, you may not know that, or if you have somebody who's a family friend that's an executor or something, they're not going to probably know any of that stuff.
No, that's right. But if the person does know, obviously it's going to make things a whole lot easier.
Right.
Especially when, when someone passes away and if an institution knows about it, they're going to freeze your account. Right. So having that information accessible, it can help.
Yeah. So just step 1, list out everything and where it's at and all of that. And step 2, choose the roles. So who do you want to handle the financial executor? It doesn't have to be the same people. Your digital executor, I don't even, in the documents, they're not even making that separate, right?
No.
Okay. So it's just something to think about. A digital executor, somebody who's tech capable to help, a financial executor, and then legacy contacts on major platforms. So just know who you want to handle those things, and then who the legacy contacts are, and then start thinking about adding legacy contacts.
For sure. I think, especially on those big platforms, they offer it. Putting that person's name in there is
making sure to change it if you get divorced or whatever. I don't even, that's a whole nother show about changing all this if you get divorced. For sure. I don't even know. I wonder if it would just stay there. I want to think about that, but that's probably something else we need to address at some point.
Yes.
It's because we always say change your life insurance and your retirement beneficiaries.
Another reason to do it is because, hey, listen, if you put your ex-spouse is your legacy contact,
I don't know.
They're probably going to see some things that not going to make them very happy.
Well, and I don't even know. We'd have to look at that. We didn't even prepare for that. If it's does it just go away if you're divorced? I don't know. Maybe not. That would be interesting. Step 3, use platform tools. First, they can override other documents.
Yes, and overriding documents. Yeah, that's a good point, because the legacy contact, it's like a beneficiary designation form. No matter what you have in your will, if you've got a beneficiary designation form, that and whatever that says, that's the first thing that a custodian is going to look at. Same thing with this legacy contact.
Okay.
If you have it, they're going to that first before
your documents.
Before your documents.
Yeah, because you may have put someone on there that you wanted different.
Yep. And then within the next one is what your estate planning documents say, right? If you put that person in there, granting more access to the content, not just the catalog, but let's assume most people don't have estate planning documents, right? If there's no legacy contact, there's no estate planning documents, the terms of service of Google, Apple, et cetera, will control. And most of those are going to default to ultimate privacy. They're not going to want, their default isn't, hey, I'll just give the spouse this information. And, after that, court orders, et cetera, no one wants to deal with any of that, right? So that's kind of the order of operations with that.
Yeah. So using the platform tools, just listing out, again, Apple Legacy Contact, Google and Active Account Manager, the social platform memorialization settings, because you can actually do your own.
Yep.
And then step 4, document consent and instructions. So in your estate plan, that's what you were mentioning, who can access digital assets, whether they can get the contents or just, high level it of what was going on. And then keep the how-to details like account lists and recovery steps outside of the will if you want easier updating and more privacy.
Yes. And again, that memo, plain English, don't feel like you need to make it fancy. Memorialize it though in some way, shape or form, whether it's a document, that's got even more privacy on your computer or it's just on a sheet of paper, right? Have that.
Sure. Step 5, secure sharing. Never put passwords in the will, like you mentioned. So using that password manager, emergency access, inheritance feature, or secure vault approach.
Yes.
So you maybe you can list a manager's emergency access on the password manager, emergency access. Here's, who you can, and then make sure at least one trusted person can pass the 2-factor authentication hurdles.
Yes. The 2-factor, I deal with this all the time. Me and my wife, if I'm dealing with our insurance, if she's on the phone with them, I may get a text message that says with the 2-factor authentication, if I'm busy in a meeting and I don't see it, she can't talk to someone about something. We've had this happen before. So that's what rung a bell with me. The 2-factor authentication, know that exists too, not just the password. There's that extra layer. So phone passcode, right there with that.
But just make sure you're not weakening the strength, have a plan for that and like how to access it, but make sure you still have the security there, because we don't want people getting,
of course,
burned or anything. And then step 6, decide your digital wishes, meaning, do you want to keep it versus deleting it? Do you want your social accounts out there? Do you want your photos out there? Do you want your personal site and domain out there? Or do you want it deleted if something happens to you?
And, maybe your executor feels a lot differently than you do about these things. Maybe it's a way that they may think they're healing, but maybe that's not what you want. Maybe you don't want all that stuff out there, right? Think about it and try and make an informed decision, whatever that is.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, you could write like a short digital legacy letter, just what you want posted and what you don't and all of that. So really, traditional estate planning is something that may have a gap. It's like only 32% of people have a will. So that means that digital planning is really non-existing too.
Yeah, that's why the default of the terms of service might not be a good thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, in summary, this is a good checklist to go through and just be thinking about and, listing all this out, documenting what is it you want. Just be thinking about all these things and, definitely get your estate planning documents in order. Make sure it addresses these. Don't just do willy-nilly off the internet, reach out to Arun or another attorney to help you with that. And just be thinking about when you open different accounts, how could this impact if I wasn't here? Do I need to put somebody's name on this? Just be not just your traditional. We're so I have been as an advisor so hyper focused on IRAs and, brokerage accounts and the house and all of that. But that's just something that needs to be brought up more is the digital side of things too.
For sure.
Well, thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're interested in learning more about Wiser Wealth Management or want to schedule a consultation to meet with one of our fiduciary advisors, you can do so by going to Wiser Investor, or you can click the link in the episode notes. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to a Wiser Retirement podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you don't miss any new episodes. We'd also appreciate if you could leave a rating and review. If you have any questions about anything that was discussed today, head to wiserinvestor.com and reach out. This podcast is strictly for informational purposes only and is not to be considered as investment advice or solicitation to buy or sell any financial products, securities, digital assets, or any other investment vehicles, or a basis to make any financial decisions. Wiser Wealth Management Incorporated is a registered investor advisor with the SEC. The host and/or guests may personally own securities, digital assets, or other investment vehicles mentioned on this podcast. Neither the host nor guests of the show are compensated for their participation, and no referral fees are paid to or received by any host or guest for clients, listeners, or similar interests. Investments involve risk, and unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor, tax professional, insurance professional, and/or legal professional before implementing any strategy discussed herein. Past performance is not indicative of future performance.